All right, welcome back from that short break. You're still watching the Press Wall here on Urban TV. Now, for those who are planning to leave your houses, just in case you want to follow this conversation, just download the Vision Digital Experience app, and then you can follow the conversation on the go, or you can go on Twitter and other our social media platforms, which is Urban TV Uganda, to follow that conversation there. That is if you want to go on the go. But for now, you can stay in that couch right there and then follow this interesting conversation on the EU resolution on the construction of the East African crude oil pipeline. But before we wait for the break, Ambassador James here was giving us some information, but unfortunately there was a small technical glitch. That's why we went into the break. But you can proceed from that submission that you were giving us, some information on.
Thank you, moderator. I was actually complimenting on what Julius had given earlier, that actually we started so many years back. The 2021 we're supposed to have seen the oil. 2017 we're supposed to have seen the oil. I was sharing that the resolution you're seeing today is just a new area, but the whole fight is about Uganda not exploiting our oil. Because if I remember, the whole thing started.
Is that the intention?
Absolutely, absolutely, and I will not be surprised if we don't. Because where it all started, I told you that the government decided to fund 100% all the exploration and expertise knowledge by having our experts we had in the ministry. And by the time we decided to go about the crude oil, we were convinced about the oil. Now, our major crime then was to say that we wanted to refine our oil, just because we were interested in the byproducts, because byproducts could do a lot of other things, including making roads, the tar and all those things. Now, the battles which started in the corridors where I used to meet, we had to fight our pipeline. You have heard about stories that your crude oil is very bad, it's very high cost. If you are to export it, you need to have electricity along the pipeline. Therefore, those considerations, don't export. For us, we said no, we shall export refined oil. We don't even, by the way, that time the president was telling them that we don't even need to export. I've looked at the volumes of the oil we consume, and I think that was a big miscalculation. The president was very frank. He told them, I've looked at the volumes you have and the volumes you import from you to serve the region. So I'm going to refine this oil and sell it in the region. I think they said, oh my God. So this guy wants to serve the entire Africa region with this oil. That's where the whole thing started. The fight was not having a refinery at all. They talked about the money. We started looking for money. We got the Chinese, then they started, it is the Chinese alone. So every stage, the conditions have been shifting. But the bottom line is, these people do not want us to exploit this oil. And if we were to exploit it, then they want to take it crude, deplete our oil in Africa, so that now they fall back to their reserves. So people should understand that that's the battle line. Now, against odds, President Museveni renegotiated, and we pleaded with them. And they allowed us to have a portion of it refined, and a portion is still exploited and shipped off crude, which was very unfair. But what do you do when you're negotiating with these people? So these conditions are going to continue coming. If we had accepted, by the way, to take crude, just like our friends in the East here.
In Kenya?
In Kenya. They are accepted that their crude can go. Have you had any debates about it?
No.
Their pipeline is actually moving on, and they're going to take it to Mombasa. Now, we had another battle is where the pipeline was to pass. Remember, originally we had partnered very well with Kenya, and the pipeline was to go through Kenya. But of course, on evaluation, the hostilities in those areas, you guys, you remember that sometimes when we used to fight a very small bit of it, they would even close our commercial trucks from crossing over. Recently, these businesses of Ruto, if they had matured into something real, you would see the pipeline uprooted until Tanzania finally, which was on the periphery, came on board. Because at first when we started the East African Coalition of the Willing, Tanzania said, no, I will participate, but I want to see first, as always. But eventually when they came in, looking at the 10-year system in Tanzania, all land belongs to the state. The country is wide and it's not heavily habited like Kenya. The shift now from Kenya to Tanzania brought new battle lines. So Ugandans need to appreciate that we need our oil. Let's fight ourselves. And some of these things that are being used in our name, because some of the things, as Julius was saying, some of them are genuine. But even if they're genuine, is the resolution stopping the progress of the project, actually curing the concerns the European Union had? My answer is no, but it's blackmail and they use it. On record, the issue of human rights, I think the West is worse off in the violation of human rights than any other country in the world. And I think for them, let's wait for their bit, because these guys have destabilized the world. They went to the Arab world, killed all their children, but taken their refugees. Let's wait for the time bomb to explode there.
Thank you so much. James, I want to get to Sheila here. Sheila, he says something very interesting. Ambassador says something very interesting. He says, they just don't want us to explore our oil. It's been a journey when we're postponing the exploration of oil. In fact, one man in Africa has said that oil is a curse to African countries. And do you think that is the motive behind it, that they actually don't want us to, explore our oil?
Actually, one of the things that we should understand is there is always a motive for something. So the motive, to me, of the European Union has never changed from what it was in 1886, I think, even 1900 when they signed the Mukunda Agreement. The motive has never changed. It is, they are looking for sources of raw materials. They don't have them. Yes, they do have oil, but they have kept their reserves just for the future, just in case the Arab world became too hostile. America would exploit its oil. European Union, in Norway, there are so many under the Black Sea and whatever. There's a lot of oil there. It's not being exploited. They've been using the Arab oil. Africa is a source of raw materials.
For the European
For the
countries.
European Union. Generally, the European Union. Latin America, they think they have, the Americas, they have the Latin Americas. That's where they have been mainly
Getting that oil from.
And of course, Africa is again a source of finished products. Because if they take anything from Africa, raw, as in raw, like our coffee, our oil, our what, then they bring it back 20, 100 times more expensive than it was. You get? So if that oil, we take it crude, it will come back, we pay through the nose, refined oil now for final use.
The 6,000 or even more in
so
future.
Who does it benefit in terms of employment? It is, of course, the people in the European Union, the people who are working in the refineries, etc., etc. Who are they exploiting at the end of the day? Because we need to understand all these dynamics. And the whole thing of the environment debate, yes, environment, destroying the environment, it is a curse. It is a big, big problem. But the problem is, even if I destroyed mine here, Uganda, it's not what I destroy. It is what somebody is destroying elsewhere in the more developed countries, the industrialized countries. So the whole ozone layer, it is not only that it is here. If for Uganda we use our pipeline, there is that whole debate of trying to hoodwink us. They are the biggest polluters. The United States, they have not closed their industries that are polluting.
Actually, Africa only contributes 3% of the
And the emissions actually make a bigger contribution than what we are doing to the environment here.
We are, at least our environment here, we are still, I don't say we are protected, because when the ravages of climate change come, we've seen the floods, we've seen the recent heat. Some of us we were casualties, all our maize in the Mubende region. It dried literally, just 3 months. So the whole debate as, now we are trying to protect the environment, to me that is a hoax. Because it is very evident, it is only applied as a whip where they want somebody to get into order. As long as you are not a threat, they will not bring the environment debate. They should have used that against so many of the polluters in Europe. They can use that against them.
The Chinese have refused.
The United States of America, it has never been signatories of any of the international conventions on the environment. Does the European Union say that we are not dealing with the United States of America because they don't respect all the environmental discussions? And we've seen the ravages of the environment. We've seen how they have polluted the whole world. So I think, to me, I go back to what I first proposed. Uganda and Tanzania should know what they want and go for it. If Total doesn't want to play,
we get an alternative.
We get other players. Come
And
on.
we can.
We can.
Yes.
Okay.
Eh.
I want us to conclude
And,
this
I
discussion.
think also, when you look at the geopolitics in Europe, there is Russia also there, which has been a menace to them. They said the man want to beat up people. He went and beat them. He's still there. So they have their bigger problems in Europe, I think, to deal with.
And by the way, don't be surprised that the visit of the Russian minister could also have
foreign
accelerated. The foreign minister recently being
don't
here
say that.
could have accelerated part of this. I don't know. Don't be surprised if it is also.
I want us to conclude this discussion, and I'm going to be asking what should we do right to see that we do not get into this delay, and that we must achieve our dream as Uganda to explore our oil. Maybe I'll start. Let me start with Julius, who has been listening.
I mean, simply because for me, I think one of the things is that what I'm looking forward for is let's put our house to order and be focused on what we want as a country and do it rightly. Because every time you mess up, you create more enemies. So one is for this oil project, because we've been working on advocacy around that, and mine has been on public finance management. One, let us be transparent. These people saying we don't compensate people, let us show who has been compensated and at how much. I'm telling you, there is a big elephant there. There is a big problem there. If it's about environment, let us be transparent again and say, this is how the project is going to affect the environment, and this is how we are going to address it in public. And everybody knows about that. But every day, we don't get that oil out. And I told you,
Is a cost.
Is a cost, and there are more problems that are coming on our way. Not even in 10 years to come, but I think in the next 2-3 years, we are going to start feeling the pinch of that oil not coming out, especially in terms of our economic outlook as a country.
That's the Julius' submission. Ambassador, what do
Yeah,
you think Uganda should do right?
First of all, I entirely associate with his submission. It is true that the resolution has got some areas which have substance. Though for me, I don't believe that those were strong enough condition to warrant that entire context in which they put the resolution. However, as he rightly says, let's have more transparency. Let's look. I remember the president, when the issue of the roads came up, he took a bold stand, said, look, we are going to work on our roads. Cut here, work there, save here, and so on. It's high time the president takes another stand now and says, look, I think we can mobilize this type of money. Because basically the major component is internal compensation. The funding of outside compensation can be met by other funders. We now go back to the Chinese who had wanted to give us money, and we diplomatically decided to allocate some space for the others, because there's no shortage. First of all, the oil is there, the oil is profitable, the returns are high, and every serious business person would want to come in. If it wasn't for the international cartels, you don't have to bring this 100%, you don't, that type of thing. I think government now must take the lead again. Of course, that we should also engage diplomatically. Sometimes the tensions with the global world are not necessary. I am very sure that my ministry is going to do the necessary engagement to cool off some of those things out there. But we want to cool off when we're actually doing something. Let's look for alternative sources of the resources. We all know, those of us in government, we know how Total came in. So Total came in as a balancing factor, not because they only had the money, but it was balancing out. Sometimes you don't want to fight certain other areas where unnecessary. But if they can't get the money, and that's the condition in which brought them in, then they get out and look for somebody else to fund the money. As Julius says, every day we lose. We have lost already a lot of time. We've staked high on this pipeline. Our middle income status, our activities, you just need to go to that area. You see the airfield where it has reached. The way it has transformed Hoima. So people need to appreciate that we've moved a long way. We can no longer move backwards. We need to look for money. We can't get annoyed with them. We can exchange, but we also engage them to tell them, please, politely. Diplomatically, they tell them politely. But as we also search for an alternative, Uganda cannot delay this anymore. We must, Parliament, please, sit down, examine the budgets, advise the executive. We must look for money, whether from our resources or from other, because this money has a multiplier effect. if we set off and this project starts to work. The number of people, as my sister Sheila was telling you, are going to benefit on that corridor. The shops that just look at unfortunate things like roads when you construct them. The kiosks that set up, the people who sell the maize, the gonja, and all those people. So the multiply effect on the pipeline is too much to lose. We need to look for resources. We need to find out that we, though me, I don't agree with Julius that there's lack of transparency. The people moving the resolution actually have the information. I think what he's saying that maybe let's give it to Ugandans also. But Ugandans don't read. These things, if you go to the websites and search, these reports are there. But the ordinary people...
Kinobe.
Ambassador, coming from a position because that
I'm coming from a position of what I know.
I would tell you, I'm very, very informed that a major component of the information these guys want is actually on record and it's there on the website. If you Google it out, you'll get it. But as he says, we don't lose anything as government. Let's be more transparent. Disclose the people who have been paid and how much they've been paid. If there's hot air, people will also see. Because those are the areas I'm now talking about. I was telling you that the majority of the people there who are going to be affected by the pipeline don't have a problem. It's a small minority in that group, which some, first bought off this. The majority, and some of them are parading as actually the real people to be compensated. Those are areas we can make a saving.
Thank you so much, James. Sheila, what must we do right to see that this oil comes out of that ground 2025?
What must we do right? Be resolute. What do we want for Uganda? Define it clearly. If it is the money we want for Ugandans, let government use our taxes. Let them use everything possible. Let's tighten our belts. Let's own our oil. And take charge of our own lives. It is tough, but I think we need to be tougher. And government has to lead on this.
All right, that is Sheila, giving her submission on what Uganda should do right. But I think, in my view, Uganda has not done so bad, especially when it comes to climate change or global warming issues. I know that last year we hosted the African Climate Week, and we committed ourselves to see that we shall, in the region, we shall
If you want this small bit on environment,
yeah.
It's an experience we had when we were working on using the Nile to build the dams. There was a debate between us and Ethiopia and Sudan about the water. President Museveni invited Egypt, the Egyptian president, then he said, you think we want to divert this water, but the rate at which Ugandans are cutting down the trees, even the little water you're talking about tomorrow, because the water comes from those trees, you don't even have the water you're crying about. Why don't we see how we use this water effectively? For us, we don't use the water. It's you who use them. We just block the water for a short time. It turns our turbines, generates electricity. People stop you cutting down the trees, and you get the water. That engagement sort of diffused. But you know what the problem was? Egyptian politics relies on the Nile. True. And people don't even listen to what you do with the Nile. Just tell them how to protect the Nile. But they don't need details. Sudan relies on the Nile. But the nuisance of a lot of water is floods, which kills them. The recent debate we have been now on the GAD, the dam in Ethiopia, was around things that were sentimental. So I don't want to say that environment is full of sentimental issues, but people always manipulate the sentiments around the environment and bring out your worst fears. But we are telling people that if we don't move on and become a middle income, and Ugandans have become able to buy off the electricity we generate, and they stop cutting trees and remain poor the way we are, this environment they think they are conserving is actually going to be worse off. Because the moment we continue being poor, we are going to degrade this environment to the extent that we shall cut everything that is available, like they are cutting all the trees, and tomorrow there will be nothing, and they will not sanction the ordinary people. They will so I think let's work together. Uganda moves ahead, gets more money, Ugandans graduate to another level, and then we can now start understanding the language of the environment together with them, instead of stifling our activities.
Thank you so much, James. We need to switch our gears and get into another topic, which is the East African Community Market Expansion. We know that the president actually was in Kenya, and he talked about this. Said
the father of the region.
The father of the region. Yes. That's how he was addressed. And he is indeed the father of the region.
Yes.
He talked about, the benefits of
he was the grandfather of the region.
whichever.
He's still,
Of course,
he's still the Jaja in the
the
region.
people who are addressing him were his sons. So if it was the grandchildren, they would have actually, yes, he's the grandfather, but
Yeah.
to them,
Yeah,
actually this one was a young son at 56. Is he 53, 54?
he's 53.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's a son. So he's talking about his father.
So yes, he talked about.
But the rest were also there.
Yeah, he talked about the benefit of Congo, South Sudan, and Somalia next, who they see in line will be joining the East African community soon. And he said we need to take advantage of that and expand our market. But we need to also examine what have we achieved so far as the East African community. But let's first get into this story, and then definitely when we return, we have that discussion.
Tumpungie mkono wananchi wakati mheshimiwa rais.
Thousands of people joined regional heads of state at Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi to witness President William Ruto take the oath of office. Many spectators clad in the bright yellow of Ruto's party were seen cheering and waving Kenyan flags.
Mkono wananchi.
President Yoweri Museveni, together with other heads of state and dignitaries, attended the swearing-in ceremony of President-elect William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. President Museveni delivered the keynote speech at the inauguration ceremony of Kenya's President William Ruto. He congratulated Ruto upon his victory.
Your Excellency William Ruto, President of the Republic of Kenya, don't involve me in your internal affairs.
During his speech, the president challenged Africa's political classes to work on wealth creation. Museveni also asked the heads of state to consider regional markets if Africa is to develop and create employment opportunities for their citizens.
You must create wealth. And wealth is not the same as natural resources. You may have natural resources, but you don't get wealth out of them. The wealth means commercial agriculture, manufacturing, services, hotels, and ICT.
Leaders and dignitaries also gave their speeches and congratulatory speeches. The Kenyan national anthem was sung before the departure protocols were released. Former President Uhuru Kenyatta's motorcade was given the first honor of departure. At the end of the inaugural ceremony, the President William Ruto's ceremonial motorcade drove around the stadium as the president waved to his supporters.
Wananchi na kuwapungia mkono wananchi wa Jamhuri ya Kenya waliopo hapa. Haya, tuweze kwenda, asante.
The president took a lap of honor in the ceremonial vehicle with crowds chanting and waving flags. Joined by the First Lady of Kenya, Rachel Ruto, the president's motorcade departed, and it was followed by the heads of government. The motorcade of His Excellency President Yoweri Museveni followed in line, President of Congo Brazzaville, President of South Sudan, President of Rwanda, among others. The government heads and other dignitaries were seen off by the Deputy President. The president's delegation proceeded to the State House, where he hosted the dignitaries who had been present for the inauguration ceremony. Among the heads of state and government and several dignitaries at Kasarani Stadium in Nairobi for the inauguration included, among others, Somalia's President Hassan Sheikh Mahmoud, Tanzania's Samia Suluhu Hassan, Malawi's Lazarus Chakwera, and Burundi's Evariste Ndayishimiye. President Ruto now takes over the reins of power from Kenyatta, whose 10-year tour of duty came to an end today. President Ruto was declared winner on August 15th after defeating longtime opposition leader Raila Odinga, who later petitioned for the win in the Supreme Court, where the case was dismissed for lack of evidence. Ruto has gone into Kenya's history as the first deputy president to clinch the presidency in his first trial.
All right, welcome back from that footage that showed the president talking about the East African community and how we should take advantage of it. We have a new player, or probably a new president in the East Africa, who is Samuel Ruto there, who also committed himself to see that this works out. Now, of course, I still have my same panel. I have Ambassador James here, who has also represented us also in East Africa, and also Sheila here, Kawamara, who has been a member of parliament in the EALA, and an economist. I love to call you an economist, by the way, because you're always talking budgets, finances, and how money has to be distributed.
And these are the guys who pull strings in the politics. Back door.
No, he actually made a statement and said, before the show, he said that you can't, economics has to be backed by politics. Without that, it's going to be impossible.
Messed up.
But anyway,
economics manages politics.
Politics manages economics.
That's why you have a very good model, you have a very good pipeline to implement, you have done everything, but now the politics come in and just mess it up.
I want to tell him that the short time I've been in politics, where all logic stops. Politics starts there.
That's where politics starts. Anyway, Ambassador, since the formation of the East African community, we've had pillars that we wanted to achieve. One of them was the monetary union, the customs unions, creating a one sharp state called probably East Africa, having the same political agenda and all things. But if you look at how far we've come, we've now added more countries from the original Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania. Now we have Burundi, we have Rwanda, which came after, South Sudan. Now we are looking at Congo, which joined us recently. Now we have Somalia, that is, that will join, which is trying to join. But have we really, since we started the East African community, have we really taken advantage of it in terms of market expansion? And how have these countries so far benefited if we look at that journey?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's fair to look at the original mindset at the original East Africa. I think we were all colonial masters from Britain. I don't know what Mzee Nyerere had in mind at that time, but they were the brains behind the original East Africa, which had Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, which was a very good thing because at that time it worked. We had the same currency. We didn't have the issues of visa and thing. You would wake up and go to any of those countries and so on. But we were at different levels. As you all know, that Tanzania remained a bit conservative for a very long time, up to the time of when we were discussing all this. Now, it's only until the coming in of President Museveni that the context of East Africa now shifted away from the traditional setting we had to other factors like the economics, which we were talking about, regional integration, now a common market, now following up on what we had global on the African continent. We had the COMESA and all these conceptual discussions. Now, the debate on East Africa, some people it doesn't even make sense because if you have Congo, which is far west, and how do you say it is part of East Africa on this other side? So people need to understand the context in which we are now talking about the East Africa. The context we are talking about of East Africa is that as Africa, right from the debate we've been having, we've been over-abused, we've been exploited, we've been muzzled around simply because we don't have a critical mass that can sit down and steer your destiny to where you actually want to go. So the debate on what we can do as East African countries is now being driven by understanding that there are many things which we can actually do together without losing our sovereignty. Because the worst thing that happened under the Berlin Conference, that sovereign thing of geographical boundaries. I'll tell you, I've worked in Congo, and when you go to Arua, there is the Aruru king. One-third of his population is in Uganda and 2/3 are in Congo. But they are demarcated by that borderline. I was told that the entire West Nile was not part of Uganda. It was carved out of Belgian Congo because the British colony wanted to control the River Nile. So the border shifted from Pakwach to where it is, cutting in between the same tribe. When you go to DRC, the president visited the DRC and he was addressing these people, telling them, you see, we have the Bakonjo and I have 5 ministers. Then they told him, Excellency, we have 15 members of parliament who are Nandis, the ones you call Bakonjo. So a bigger portion of the Bakonjo actually inside Congo. When you go to Sheila Kawamara's area, the Bahema, on the other side, actually the Banyoro Batoro of this other side. So the borders partitioned and cut out families. When we were doing the border demarcation DR Congo, you found that we came to places where the borderline cuts the sitting room, and the sitting room is in Uganda and the bedroom,
is in another country.
So when you look at it that way, you realize that the debate on East Africa means much more than just what we're talking about. When you go to Ituri, the people in Ituri are in Congo, but their lifeline is in Uganda. You need 3 hours to fly from Ituri to go to Kinshasa, where their capital is. And for them, Uganda is their capital. So the business and doing business together makes more sense now to us. But you know, it's also a threat. You've seen how, and I was sharing here with us, you remember we discussed behind the cameras that don't rule out the possibility that DRC joining East Africa is actually another bigger problem to us globally. They've been hyping it up. East Africa, the most powerful country, the GDP. They are blowing out things which have not even ourselves have not looked at. So it has a lot of benefits. However, we need to do a long journey. For example, why do you need a visa to go to Congo? Why do you need a visa to travel to Rwanda? Why do you need a visa to travel within your countries here if you're actually visiting people who are part of your people? So we have achieved one major thing that we pronounce ourselves now as East Africa, but as leaders and as states, we still rightly need to do much more to remove the psychological barriers that we still have in our countries to move. I was in DRC, and it was very complicated because, you know, the Congolese used to consume a lot of fish which used to come from our lakes. But structuring it through the border posts, it will become a very big problem. We think that now with this new arrangement, are we going to work out the non-tariff barriers to the free movement, to free exchange, to the language, and of course language is a very big problem. For example, when you go to Congo, they consider themselves Francophone. We call ourselves Anglophone. They go to Francophone Summit to discuss their things. For us, we go to the Commonwealth and so on. Those are now psychological things that are embedded deeply in our mindset. So if we want, we need to carry out a lot of serious debate, a lot of advocacy, including you in the media, to remove those borders that were created by the colonialists from the population of East Africa to move on. Unfortunately, we need to create a lot of cadreship because, as you rightly say, we've just sworn in a new president. If he's not conceptually rhyming with what you're talking about, the following day you'll find him working against all the gains that you've actually made. So I think the leadership in the East African, right from the father of the region now, they need to find out a mechanism that will now bring out the very concept we're talking about of East Africa and why we need it and the benefits, and then we'll have an aggressive campaign using all parties. This is not something that should even be partisan because all the benefits we're talking about are here. You can't believe I was in Khartoum, and when I wanted to ship my commodities back here, it took me 4 months. My colleague who was in the US took 1 month to bring his. Why? Because I had to go through Port Sudan. Then in Port Sudan, they had to load my commodities to Saudi Arabia, the port in Saudi Arabia, and another ship go through Dubai. Wow. Yet it was less than 1,500 kilometers to drive from Khartoum through Juba to Kampala. But once you get to the border in Abyei area, you can't cross South Sudan to enter Khartoum. Supposing we worked on the Trans-Africa route, which we used to talk about, supposing we would be able to drive from here up to Juba, up to Khartoum, you drive from here up to Eritrea, you drive from up here to Ethiopia, all these things now we are talking about would make a lot of sense. Because air travel, which we now rely on, is the most expensive means of connecting business.
Worst environment.
Absolutely. in the neighboring countries, we call ourselves the food basket. But you know the food rots here, and we can't push it to the neighboring villages to earn money. So all those things to work out, we must address the mindset of the East Africa, right from the leaders, by the way, because that's conservative sovereign debate is always among us, the leaders. I want to retain my flag, my visa, my this. Once we get rid of all of those, I'll tell you the best thing that can happen to this region is the East African context of working together as East African countries.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I'll come to you, Sheila. You've represented Uganda at the EALA. And I was reading an article sometime, and Kenyan experts say that one of the reasons why the whole integration process is taking long is because of the implementation. They discuss things as leaders, even at EALA, but when it comes to implementation, it's just another thing. So it looks like it's a boardroom kind of discussion, hotel talk, and then when we go back, we don't even implement what we are discussing. Why is that a problem?
You have rightfully said it is implementation. I work at through the East African East African Sub-Region Support Initiative, EAC. We work at 20 borders with the women cross-border traders. And of these, at 8 borders, we have officers, so serving about 16 borders. And one of the challenges we have is that whatever is implemented or passed as legislations, protocols, etc., it seems they remain in Arusha. They are not implemented. 2 weeks ago, we were at our offices in Mutukula, and we were crossing. It took us 4 hours to clear our vehicles to cross over for a meeting. The women kept calling, you people, we are going, These are market vendors. They have come. They are already there at the other side of the border. But we can't cross over from Uganda to Tanzania. Last week, we were in Lunga Lunga and Horohoro. We have all the passports, clearance, now, without a COVID certificate, by the way.
You can't cross borders,
anywhere.
Oh,
so
sure. It's still an issue?
Oh my God, it's now the COVID certificate. You have to
Or full vaccination?
2 vaccination. You get to the border, Kenya. Tanzania is asking, we have this one-stop border post. They're asking you, how long are you going to stay in Tanzania? For goodness sake, I'm going for a few hours meeting. Why are you going to Tanzania? And, coming back, Kenyans now, it is their turn. Why are you coming to Kenya? I said, by the way, all my bags and everything, I've been resident in Kenya for the past 1 week, so everything is there. So there is a lot of, I don't know whether hospitality is between our...
mindset is still sick.
The mindset, as Ambassador Kinobe has said, it is so ingrained. There is a lot of hostilities, a lot of suspicions. I don't know whether it's from the top. If it's not from the top, there is a need for our leaders to come down from their towers and sensitize our people. The East African Legislative Assembly, the East African community is not doing enough PR for what the community is for us. I can assure you, I worked with the EALA. This is the best thing that can happen to East Africa. I mean to all of us as East African citizens, that regional integration. Because if I have my tomatoes in Uganda, because of the different seasons, when we have a lot of tomatoes, somewhere there is scarcity. Yeah? So we can do a lot of trade, even amongst ourselves. But it is frustrated. Tanzania will have a lot of rice, then the Ugandans say, I think at this time we don't need that rice. Because the other time they also didn't need our maize. So we kind of block. There is this, I was going to use a word, but there's this pride, which is uncalled for. We need to look at the bigger picture. What are we benefiting? Why do we need the borders anyway? They say it's for security purposes. I can assure you, we have enough security means to detect. I think my fingerprints have been captured everywhere. I can't run, I can't hide. My telephone reports me every time I cross over. And even they send me reports after, unsolicited reports. You were to this place, you were to this place, you slept here.
No, that is your Google telling you.
Yes, but Google can be captured by government security.
If they want to monitor how you
they want to monitor where I am. There is nowhere I can hide. So let's stop using our borders as an excuse to block trade. Let's open up, let's trade. Yeah? It's the only way we can develop, really. And pay off the debts which Julius
that Julius
is talking
is
about.
very concerned about.
Yes, because unless we can really promote economics in this region.
Thank you so much, Sheila. Julius, we've been at a place where we want to promote free movement, free movement of goods, labor, services, and all that. As a well-traveled gentleman around the region, if you're to rate our achievement in that direction, where are we?
No, we are still very far. Just in Europe, you can travel. You can get a ticket in Europe to travel to different cities at 50 euros. 50 euros. But I don't think you can get a ticket in this country at 50 euros.
For your information, you can fly to Europe at $500. You fly to Sudan at $500. Just to enforce that.
So the cost of doing business is what this integration must look at. And I want to talk as an ordinary person, really. What is it that we should be integrating? One is that if I am a grower of kasori, my kasori should have market.
In East Africa?
Yes, in East Africa, that Sheila, who is buying kasori and maybe is a business person in this region, does not have all these barriers, all these roadblocks, all these taxes to take my kasori today and sell it in Mombasa, in Tanzania, where. But if this month she has come, but next month she has not come, because somebody woke up at the border and said we no longer need the kasori, then why do I have to be in this integration? So as an ordinary person, I think it's the first thing is we need trade of goods and services, labor, capital, and IT. That's where an ordinary person is going to benefit from this particular trade. And as such, we want these people who are seated up there to just first understand that, just have that mindset, that you can have all these fantastic laws and policies, but as long as they have not come down to be implemented and I benefit from them, then you still remain as your thing. It is not, that thing is not part of me. Look at, if we had an East African Monetary Union, for example,
which we plan to attain by 2024.
and you have one currency, those who benefited, who were born before us, one currency, you have your shilling, you don't need to first convert it. I mean, you can see how it is so easy to travel in Europe when you have a euro. You don't need to convert money to each and every town and city you are going to. And you can be able to go to Sudan, to go to all the East African countries just using one currency. That's a huge benefit. That I can go and work in Rwanda, I can go and work in Kenya, I can go and work anywhere where there is market, where my skills are needed. And that is the importance of what an integration means to an ordinary person. That I can get a loan. You forget about these banks of yours, but you can get a loan.
You can go in Kenya and get a loan.
You can go in Kenya and get a loan. I mean, that's what an integration is all about. That there are systems that are in place to ensure that KCB, whatever bank is in the East African region, they can be able to transact across all of us. That will definitely reduce your interest rates in this country, which are abnormally, so high. That now you have so many players in the region, and remember in economics, the price of demand and supply. So there is the supply of money is so much, and of own products is so much to the extent that now the cost has also come down. But also the question of there is this peer pressure among nations. Put your house to order. Your roads are not good. Please fix them. Your railway is not working properly, because for us, we drive a kilometer from one place to another within an hour. But for you, we drive the same distance for more hours. So there is also that peer pressure of ensuring that we improve our services. That I can fly to Aga Khan and I don't need to pay in dollars if they have that particular service. So you can see what integration brings to us. But Ambassador said something. The leadership is also very important in this integration. So if you have our new hustler in the region, and we are all looking at, okay, what is he likely to do?
What is he going to do?
Is he going to do it the Amin way and then everybody runs away? Or this is the person, and really from my perspective is that you are coming from a humble origin. that you really don't want these non-trade barriers. When
indeed.
your truck of fuel is coming from Mombasa, you want it to reach Uganda probably by the next day. You don't want it to spend another week along the way, because that is a cost on you as a person. So we really want also the leadership, new old, to be able to think in terms of how can we ensure that the goods and services in the region are. Because as Uganda, East Africa is our biggest market. We even trade at a surplus, 1 billion plus in terms of, it's our market. So we must do whatever it takes to be able to maintain this particular market. Because otherwise, any instability within the region, whether in economics or in politics, is going to affect you who is selling tomatoes, who is selling pineapples, the maize people. It's going to affect all of us. And therefore is you want to ensure that the leadership knows that, and the cadres with them also know that actually this is what we need to take down to the ordinary people. Sheila is talking about these borders. You go in some of these countries and you find they don't care about the borders, those personal sentiments. People care about welfare of their people. If the border is causing people not to progress, then the people become borderless. It just becomes a political thing. And that's why you find that open markets where countries have open economic freedoms, where there is an open market, there is the markets are liberalized very well, there are very strong regulations around that, people have prospered. But where you are still, this is my thing, I need to protect it.
This is my country. I have to protect my goods. Yours
for you to come into my country, I have to first put a list of reasons as to why you are coming. And the first time you are arriving, I suspect that you are likely to be a danger to my society. Let me tell you, it's going to take you more than 100 years to get out of, to prosper than this person who has already put up a very nice system. I was in a meeting and a bankers were like, no, we can't reduce interest rates because Ugandans don't want to pay money. They are poor at paying back. There is this banker he was in New York. He had worked in New York for around 20 years. He said that by the time, Julius, you appear on our door, we've known your credit profile. We know that your problem is that's not paying money, but your problem how you run a business. So even before we give you money, we put aside some resources to help you run your business. But everybody qualifies to get a loan. But here, before you get, they will ask you all the documents at the cost of getting that loan is even more than what you want. So that mentality, and I'm coming to the mindset and to conclude is, for me is the mindset of our leadership and our cadres to help the ordinary person understand that is one of the biggest challenges we face in this integration. That if you say we need a monetary union, one currency, oh my goodness, everybody begins, our paper is going away. If you have a photo of your Kobe, Uganda Kobe, gorillas, how can our gorilla go away? But this gorilla paper is going to be useless if it cannot be protected at a regional level. Because having one currency, you can see what the euro does. Euro is very strong, so strong. But if Uganda could all have one currency in this African region, this business of inflation, this business of changing money, exchange rates, they will definitely go down tremendously. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julius. Ambassador, I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
He talks about one currency. And if you go to the website of the East African community, the vision is 2024, which is just 2 years from now, probably 1 and something months. Do you think we are going to actually achieve that? It took us time to get the passports.
Yeah.
We now have them.
We have them.
Now the currency.
I think we have challenges that must be overcome, and the timelines are good because they help you to set your pace and evaluate how well or how badly you're performing. The 2 years is too near, but let's see.
Because we're already fighting over where the office should be.
No, you are fighting where you should be in the first instance.
But the genuine challenge is about the surplus he talked about. I remember when we were in a business conference some time back, a regional business conference, where we're debating the challenges of our maize not being allowed in Kenya and the surpluses they have there. The president addressed them and said, look, if we are going to compete for the small market in East Africa alone, then this tension is always going to continue. How about Ugandans selling all their maize here, and then we get a serious businessman who now exports for East Africa? Because it is possible now if we export as East Africa. We see that now we have enough maize in the region. Ugandans and all East Africans combined can no longer satisfy it and finish it, but there are areas where there are deficits. Why don't we look now at ourselves as a bloc? Because that was even a policy. Recently, I remember when we had just started, we had started moving towards even having East African embassies. And we were discussing that what if we have a station like Khartoum, and you have Uganda there, then in Addis Ababa you can have Tanzania. Then you go to maybe to Egypt, you have Kenya. Do we need even to multiply our embassies? So the debate was actually moving on well at that level. I think this debate we are discussing here to give benefits to the East African community would be a very good debate if it was actually intensified. That's why for me I was saying, submitting that we need to work on the mindset. Because Africans will have one major problem. We are very conservative by nature. There are certain things we will stick on and we say, no, this is how we used to do it. And you want to do it that way, irrespective of whether it's actually no longer doing good for you.
Is it by nature or by lack ignorance?
No, I think it's ignorance.
I don't think it's
mindset.
We do change.
Attitudes are not about attitudes are not. I did marketing, and one thing is that what these people in marketing do is to change your attitude, the way you see something, against the way you feel about it. So by our very nature, Africans were very conservative by the way. So you must have a very aggressive campaign to say, wait a minute, I think he has a point. But sometimes we even close out. Before you even say anything, don't tell me, for us we used to do it this way. So we need to, like now in the trade we are talking about, if we've been trading into Kenya, just take the example of mangoes. I know there are seasons when we have plenty of mangoes here. But when the mangoes run out in Uganda, you see the mangoes from Kenya coming in. Now, can we say if we have preservatives, and if all the mangoes come in and find we can't consume them as East Africa, we now get an East African exporter, who now will send them to other European countries or other countries. But if we think that it is, now I must trade in Kenya, if I can't sell in Kenya, it has a fight, that's now the mindset. Internal competition in the East African market alone is also a big problem. We all produce for the small East African market because our mindset doesn't look outside East Africa. Two, the infrastructure development. I would have loved to take all these things maybe in DRS where they don't exist, but you have to go by air. Air now, I think they charge about $2 per kilo of everything that you airlift. And by the time it gets there, the market. So some things have to be done concurrently. We address the mindset of the people on the market and the benefits of this, but also work on our infrastructure. Remember when we were pushing the Congolese before they came in, told them that, look, all our roads to your borders, right from Kabale up to Arua are tarmac, but you don't even have an inch inside your country.
Inside your country from our borders.
We started working with them. I remember when we were there, we offered.
And now we are paying for them.
No, I was going to tell you that we offer. We are even now paying for them because they are
but it benefits Uganda.
No, I'm telling you, that's the point I'm making. That the former president that offer to work on those roads actually was made during Kabila's time. We went there. President Museveni knew that once the roads in that area flow into Uganda, we get all the returns that we need. He offered two things, to work on the roads up to Beni and Butembo and electricity from Kasese up to inside. Do you know, the president then refused. They are being worked on because now the current president looked at it differently
open-minded about
and
it.
has allowed it. Now it's our turn, Ugandans were now the ones complaining. But just go to Mpondo and see how many vehicles trade into Uganda to buy things that we sell. Yes, and you would be surprised why a Ugandan is worried, because you see, in that area, you would have now about 100 trucks coming in because the roads are being worked on, against 2 which would take a whole month to come in. Who benefits? So now the debate has shifted to Ugandans. Why do you spend our money in Congo? They don't. That's the mindset I'm telling you. But I will tell you,
Ambassador, as you wind up.
the Europeans give you money to construct a road here. Why don't the Ugandans construct a road in Congo? You want the European
No,
money.
the point
The
is
taxpayers' money. Wait,
Your road,
not even the road.
In 1 minute.
I'm trying to tell people that you look at what you reap out of that,
the economic
and not
benefits.
the actual thing. Because I'll tell you, Europeans, out of just politics and other neo-colonialist tendencies, give you grants to do things here. But you don't want to even have a kilometer of the road extend to your neighborhood. We used to debate one point about immunization. We used to say, if you have your neighbor who does not immunize his or her kids, and you immunize yours, the sicknesses will always come. It is only fair that you assist your neighbor if you really find genuinely that he cannot afford to immunize his or her kids. That's what we've been doing on the border with Congo. We set up hospitals and schools.
Thank you, James.
Because of the broader benefits.
Thanks,
But
James.
now you're going to start question, why should our taxpayers' money go? We shall spend more money to cure the problems if we don't work with them to get along with us. And move on.
Thank you, James. Julius, just in 1 minute, we want to close.
So I know this. I think for me, in terms of integration, really, is that as a country, one is let us put our house order and get focused in terms of where we want to be. Let us forget about this conservativeness. Look at the big picture. I think that is very important. And I agree with you that there are returns if you look at the bigger picture than the immediate one. You can suffer for one day, but then prosper for another day.
Thank you so much, Julius. Sheila, in 1 minute.
1 minute, I think my two brothers have said it
I've
all.
said it.
But I would say, I would agree, we need that regional integration the other day, not even yesterday. Eh? I've seen the roads networks they have done towards the different borders where we are operating. My God, it is amazing when those roads are done. I would like to appeal to our government. Please go out there and do the road between Kalisi, Zochotera, to Mutukula. It is horrible. So it really ruins the whole idea of trade. Because if I'm going to spend 8 hours trying to negotiate those bumps, it's terrible.
The road from Bunagana to Goma is 80 kilometers to Goma. But you didn't know we go through Rwanda, go through all the households instead of going
this conversation. Thank you so much, Sheila. Thank you so much, Julius. Thank you so much, James, for sparing that weekend time morning for to come here and discuss some issues so that Ugandans can understand what exactly is happening out there. My name is Darren Bartlett, and I want to say thank you so much for being on Urban TV on Press Wall. This program will return again next week on Saturday. Allow me to wish you a lovely weekend. Goodbye.
Thank you. Hey, time rushes.